Sorry about that.
You're good.
No, what? Did you get it all cleaned up?
Yeah, clean enough. All right. Clean enough. All right, you guys ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's go. That was loud, sorry. Maybe it's just loud for me. Can you guys hear this?
I can't even hear this.
Okay, there's music playing.
Imagine our intro.
Yes, it's our intro.
Okay. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, music, right? All right, welcome back to the Okayest Cook Podcast. Chris Whonsetler, your host, coming at you with Andy Heiser and a special guest. We have Whitney Tramel. Tramel? I asked you just now and I already forgot. Tramel?
Like rounds of camel.
Okay. Whitney Tramel. Yes, you run the Wild Strength podcast, and as of this recording, you're the newest addition to the Okayest network. Is that true? Like your brand spanking new on our network?
Actually, I've been podcasting for just a little over a year now. And today was supposed to be my first one, well, is hopefully going to my first one that's dropping on the network. We're just having some technical difficulties today, but officially a part of the network, and yeah,
Sick,
so
yes.
far I'm the okayest okay person you ever meet.
Well, welcome to the network. Yeah, it's a strong cast of characters here, and it's just getting better. So we're super excited to have you on our episode because of your experience. If anybody looks Whitney up, there is just a long string of letters after your name. Can you break some of those down and just kind of fill us Okayest Cook people into like exactly who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm definitely one of those people who like doesn't love talking about myself. So like when you talk about the string of letters, it's like, okay, I can just sit here and like talk about the string of letters. Yeah, my background is as a strength and conditioning coach. I've actually worked mostly with military in that setting. I've spent a little bit of time working in like the private sector setting, and then as well as with high school and college. But most of the time I've spent working with military, a little bit with fire and law enforcement as well.
Cool.
And I am actually relatively new to hunting. This will be my 4th or my 5th season coming up this year. And so kind of as I got into hunting, I'm from Texas. I moved out west to Colorado, and I really realized, like I have to be physically fit to go into the mountains or if I'm in Texas and I'm dragging a deer out, like there's some physicality to that. So I kind of thought in my head, like I can train people who are into hunting or teach people about training and hunting similarly to the way I would teach someone who's going in combat. And I know those two scenarios sound vastly different. But like when we talk about training qualities, the qualities that I'm training these people are very similar, right? So we need a little bit of strength, we need a little bit of endurance. There's multiple different qualities that we need. We need to be able to move in different directions on uneven terrain. And so, yeah, why those two settings might sound totally different. I would train those two people very similarly. And so that was kind of where Wild Strength came from. The podcast was
That's awesome.
My background in strength and conditioning tied with my passion for like hunting in the outdoors. And it's kind of turned into this like, I like the initial saying was like for everything wild, everything strength, and everything in between. And like the everything in between, I think is what I really honed in on the most.
Sure.
In the last year, some conversations have nothing to do with hunting. Some have nothing to do with training. Some are on like mental health. Some are on like, I just have a friend on and we wanted to talk. So it's been cool. But yeah, my background, the string of letters all kind of represent just certifications or like education and all that I have in strength and conditioning.
That's awesome. Super cool. Yeah. Well, we're excited to learn what you've got to say, some of your thoughts and experiences, and how that's going to shape us moving forward. So today, what is today? Today's February 7th, and New Year's resolutions, I would say, are possibly on the decline at this point in the year. I don't know. Have you guys made anything? Are you holding true to some of your goals?
I haven't set one myself, but I can tell you in the last week going to the gym that there were significantly less people than there were 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I gave up on. I'm not a big fan of New Year's resolutions so much as I try to set goals or PRs for the year. Things I want to do or hit. One of mine this year had more to do with, and so a lot of the viewers know, but Whitney doesn't know. I CrossFit and fitness has been a huge part of my life for a really long time. Was competitively fit for a while, and then found hunting, and my love for Miller Lite came back, and my decline for hurting all the time went away. Honestly, just with age, a lot of it too. But just reprioritizing some things. And I picked up hunting kind of same time frame you did, Whitney, and it's been one of the things that it became the thing I was obsessed with when I was done competing in CrossFit. But I was really naturally gifted at the physicality part of it because I was already pretty fit. So it's one of those things where CrossFit always takes the backseat during hunting season, but then as soon as hunting season's over, then I flip-flop those back over. And Unfortunately, the season has ended for us here, at least for me. I think we have a couple days left for goose. I don't know if I'll get. I'll go if Chris invites me, type of waterfowler. So for the most part, though, getting back in the swing of things, and that's kind of my goal for this year, is to stick to that goal of prioritizing fitness in the off season, and then reprioritizing hunting. So basically flip-flopping those, because as an archer, bow hunting requires practice, and I'm one who believes you should shoot your bow. If you can't shoot it every day, at least once a week, you should shoot your bow. But again, putting that back down into perspective a little bit. So that's kind of my goal this year, is to hit CrossFit season during CrossFit season, hunting season versus hunting season, and just stick to those 4 days a week in the gym minimum, if not 5, and just try to hit that every single time. So my resolutions aren't shot, but my goals this year, though, are a little bit more about just making sure that I'm checking those boxes, as opposed to trying to hit. In the past, I'd set goals like, I want to hit a 500-pound deadlift. And, well, that's great. I don't feel like, I don't have that in me anymore like I used to.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to say that my resolution so far has been steady. So keeping true to that. My only goal is just to close my rings every day. I got one of the Apple Watches, and if I just close all my rings, I'm good to go. I've always been a little active, but not super active. Just, being a photographer, there's a lot of desk time. And I tried the whole stand-up desk for a while. It doesn't work for me. I just would slouch too much and lean, and it did worse things for my back. So, yeah, kind of got lazy when the kids showed up, and just the lack of energy is a real thing. And now that my youngest set of kids are 2, I'm just trying to keep up with them. And so it's just a lot of ups and downs, and got myself finding my knees were just kind of hurting too much, and my back was hurting too much. So yeah, again, goal this year is just to get more active and be able to keep up with the kids. And I want to be able to run around with my 4-year-old and chase him as he learns to ride his bike, and just keep up. So, but again, yeah, I'm holding true. Closed my rings for all of 25 so far. So super excited about that. And body's only hurting.
A really good goal and a really good resolution. And I didn't mention, I'm working on my PhD, so I'll reference research.
More letters. Jeez.
More letters. Get them all. She's gonna have the whole alphabet.
I'm nerd also. Fun fact.
Yeah, geez.
But there's research in goal setting, and that more broad goals, kind of like you both mentioned, right? You don't have anything specific like I want to deadlift 500 pounds or I want to do this thing. Broad goals usually they're easier to stick to, and B, they're a little bit more motivating, because it's really hard if you have a very oddly specific goal and you're not really seeing that progress towards it. Then you're more likely to be no, whatever. I'm just going to turn around. And we all know that picture where what you're looking for is right behind the wall, but you don't know it, kind of thing. But yeah, the more goals that are broad in scope are generally easier to stick to. You're more likely to stick to them, and they'll last a little bit longer. So I think both of you have really good, we'll call them resolutions, but goals for the year.
goals,
no,
resolutions.
There's an ad, like Jerry Seinfeld is like famously known for this, about like just build the chain. And this is like, and that's what I like about Chris's goal of like closing the rings. It's like it becomes more obtainable because you're not worried about like trying to like go to the gym every single day, 5 days a week for the rest of the year. It's more like, well, I can close today's ring. I can go to the gym today and then just keep putting an X there, and you do one thing every single day, and it starts to X out those days on a calendar, and you'll see it visibly make a chain. And that's what I think Apple does a really good job of showing that on that map too, of those rings closed. And there's a lot of pride that comes out of being able to continue to build that. But I also think it becomes easier that if you have an off day, Chris, you catch some sickness, the boys' illness puts you down because you do have a 4-year-old, and you can't close your rings that day.
Relentless, yes.
Just get back on doing it again on the next day. And if you go back and look at the whole of that goal, these two little blips don't really matter.
Yeah. Honestly, the whole of the goal is just to be stronger, be more active. And like, again, it's been a month and a few days. And like, I'm seeing it and I'm feeling it. Like it's easier to crawl around on the floor. And, my kids they take these little dump trucks and they just put their hands on the dump and they just run. And it's like, they want me to do that with them. I'm like, well, kids, I can't put my hands on this little dump truck and chase you around the kitchen.
Children's sled pushes that.
Yes, it is. Yeah. But it's easier now. Like it's, just trying to do more. I do a lot of body weight stuff. So like with the kids, I can't go to the gym. Like who knows what time they're going to wake up every day. It's always different. So if I try and carve out some time in the morning, like it's going to get ruined by somebody waking up. And there's nothing worse than like starting a workout and having to stop like 10, 15 minutes into it to address a fussy kid. So I do a lot of body weight stuff, push-ups, I've got Mountain Tough, some programs that they put on, and it's solid. And I ride a bike inside right now and hopefully outside when it warms up. So it's great. But I have some questions about like time of day to work out. Like I know Andy, we've talked about this in the past about working out at night and how much I hate that, but lately it's like literally been my only option. Like again, the kids wake up at an ungodly hour. I got to do my job, got to take care of the kids, got to be present at home. And then before I know it, like it's 9:00 at night and I still have to close a ring. Does that matter? Like working out in the morning versus the evening? Like what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so. And I can't speak like specifically to them, but there's something called chronotypes, and there's like 3, maybe 4 different ones, and they're kind of based on your sleep schedule. Like, are you an early bird? Are you
schedule?
a night owl? Like, kind of somewhere in between. And also, like, where do you find? So we have like what's called our circadian rhythm, which is basically just like kind of our energy throughout the day. And so it's been like some people are very energetic in the morning, and like from 4 o'clock in the afternoon, if I haven't gotten what I needed to get done, that's probably not happening. Where like some people at first thing in the morning, like they're not getting anything done, but it's 9:00 at night and they're just going and they're knocking things out. And so a lot of it's based on that. And so when people ask that question, it's always going to be based on where are you most productive, and then also what fits your schedule. Sometimes like working out close to bedtime can be tough because your heart rate's elevated when you're trying to go to sleep. But it's also, if you know what you're doing, you can finish a workout and you can do, I don't know, maybe it's breathing techniques or breathing exercises, or you can do something to intentionally bring your heart rate down so that falling asleep is easier.
I just hate going to bed like sweaty and hot. So
take a shower, weirdo.
I could, I guess, right?
Yeah, like work out, and I'd recommend even taking like a cold shower because I also hate going to bed hot. Like I love cold showers. I don't do it for any scientific reason other than I just prefer it. If you're working out at night, like take a cold shower, like do some like intentional breathing exercises to keep your heart rate down so that you can fall asleep a little bit easier. And if that's what works for you, heck there's not really a better time though.
Copy that.
Your original question, it's not a best time. It's really what works for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that.
Yeah, no, 100%. I would say the only thing I would tack onto that is, again, this is a great example of like the best plan in the world is secondary to the plan you'll actually follow. So like if for you, it's right now in the season of life, it's doing the push-ups and try to put together a quick WOD and get on the stationary bike for for 20 minutes, if that's what the best thing is, that's better than, yeah, would I'd love for you to come join me at the CrossFit gym for both the class and then an extra session afterwards? Absolutely. But, that's not the season of life that you're probably in, depending on what those goals are. Because I was actually just having this conversation with a buddy this morning at a breakfast meeting. And he was beating himself up because he used to he's like, I've always been in the morning guy, but I can't do the 4:45 in the morning anymore. I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I mean, I think you did it before because it fit your work lifestyle. And really maybe a 4:30 at night is probably a better way for you to finish the work day, hit a hard workout so you can disconnect your brain. And then when you come home and then you can, hang out with the kids and sleep and get to bed on time, that whole thing. So I fully agree. It's like the best plan is the plan you'll actually do, not necessarily the best thing that science might say.
Yes, I like that. Yeah, I used to be the morning person as well, and not anymore. It's changed. I don't love that it's changed. I really miss the morning, but it's just life. Life comes at you hard sometimes. So maybe when the kids learn to sleep, we'll switch back to being a morning person. But until then, yes. Let's talk about fuel now. So part of my next we'll say issue or question, just waking up kind of just sore and just my whole body is just kind of achy and tight. Part of that's just I turned 40 this year, so part of it's that. And the other part is just like learning to fuel my body properly, both before some of these workouts, but then obviously after the workout. There's some stuff you can do nutritionally, to kind of to fight this. So waking up, how do I wake up and not be quite so achy and sore and all of that?
Yeah, no, good question. And I'm gonna what's the word I'm looking for?
I got water.
Disclaimer here that I'm not a dietitian. And I know a lot of people there's nutrition certifications you could get, but I did not go to school for nutrition, but I have worked with my field. I know a lot about it, and I've also worked a lot hand in hand with dietitians and asked them questions. So my disclaimer is that I'm not a dietitian or a nutrition expert, but I do know a lot about it. But yeah, to answer your question, I think it's so fun, and people hate this answer because in training and nutrition, a lot of the times the answer is it depends. But I can still have more than just it depends answer. That honestly, as far as waking up in the morning and feeling energized in the morning, a lot of that starts with what you did the day before, or the night before. So did you eat enough for dinner that night, or did you eat enough throughout the day previously so that you don't wake up starving the next morning? And you're going to be a bit hungry. We just fasted for however many hours that you slept. So it's okay to be hungry in the morning. But so you're not feeling like you're ravenous hungry and have to raid the pantry first thing in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that's going to depend on just how much you fueled and how much you ate the day before. And did you work out that day? So if you worked out that day, obviously you burned some extra calories. So maybe you need to eat a little bit more, or if it was just something like a walk, maybe you didn't need to eat that much more. Also outside of the workout, were you stressed that day? Because when we're stressed, our heart rate goes up a little bit, our blood pressure goes up a little bit. There's things that happen internally when we're stressed that are burning calories that we don't think about. And I think that's a huge thing. You can go and I have days where work stressed me out, school stressed me out. I didn't get anything done and I'm just stressed all day. And I didn't work out at all the day, but I feel like I ran a marathon just because of
that makes sense.
All that going on. So even small things like that we don't consider can really affect how much food we need to fuel with, and how good or bad our sleep is going to be, and then consequently how we're going to wake up feeling the next morning.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it is just I think we also, or society has taught us that there's breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and those are the things that we have to eat. I think I always say eat when you're hungry and stop eating when you're no longer hungry or when you feel some sort of satiety, some sort of fullness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the best rule of thumb for anyone, right? So if you're not hungry in the morning, don't eat. Eat when you get hungry. If you're hungry at midnight because you're working, that's okay. Eat something. And I've found, for me and for most people, that's generally what works the best, is eating when we're hungry and stopping when we feel some resemblance of full.
Yeah.
The one thing I feel like that people struggle with the most, especially when about like eat when you're hungry and be down when you're not. The other thing is that oftentimes people don't understand that dehydration has a lot of the similar feelings as hunger. And so one of the tricks, Chris, we've talked about this, and if you remember from our conversation with Caitlin, she recommends this as well. Like most of the time you're dehydrated, you're not actually hungry. And especially if you're not one who's good at drinking water, which a lot of our society is not. Coffee, pops, things like that have entered the society, and those become like where people get most of their hydration is going to be from drinking a soda instead. And your body's having to work overtime to process all that sugar and all that crap that you just put through your body, and you're actually dehydrated. So like the other big thing, especially if you're trying to eat better, if you're actively trying, give yourself a giant glass of water and drink that before you have your dinner or any meal. Like have that first. Yeah. And then eat and drink like you normally would in your meal, and I promise you will feel satiated or full a lot sooner than you would if you were just eating. Because the problem is because to your point, especially in the morning, like you're right, it has to do with what you've done the day before, and these days compile and they stack up. Making the choice to eat like crap for 3 meals in a row today, you may not feel that tomorrow, but the next day you're gonna, and the next day you're gonna, and if you start compiling that. The same works in reverse. If you've actually been cognizant about, what Caitlin said in her episode of real fruits and vegetables, like real food, you just eat as much of it as you want, but just make sure it's real food,
for sure,
and not the other processed junk. Once you get that through your system, that energy level that comes back is just insane. I love when someone decides to start a diet because all they're really doing is just being conscious of what they're putting into their body. And they're like, I feel like every diet people feel better on. It's because you're actively paying attention to what you're ingesting. And what you'll find is that some things you're ingesting do better for you and like back to Whitney's point, it always depends. And that depends means that like I can eat chicken and rice all day long like a dog. Like it doesn't bother me. But some people need variety. So I need you to make 3 different versions of that, chicken and rice meal. But if you decide to quit that because you want to have you don't want to eat chicken and rice anymore, and you want to eat like a Snickers bar, and you go get a cheeseburger and then a giant large Coke, well, that's when we've broken that cycle. So I do think that like that big trick of first off, like, are you hydrated is the number one thing. Like, are you drinking enough water? And for those people, like just general rule, like drink your body weight in ounces of water, and that's where you should start. Yeah. If you're working out, you need more.
For sure.
So like, those are, I think, another quick tricks to feeling better in the morning is that night before. And then, man, there you go, buddy. Chug that bad boy. Three hours a day.
Yes.
First rule of thumb when I wake up is I've got one of the like big water bottles that it's also an assault weapon. I've determined I take it with me everywhere, but like I chug at least half of those first thing in the morning, and sometimes I'll even, depending on how thirsty I'm feeling, I'll get through almost a full one. But also to your point, kind of like in that episode with Caitlin, she was talking about like eating real foods and whole foods. Like the quality of the food that you're eating is also going to affect how you're feeling and how hungry or not hungry that you are. I took, as I was listening to that episode, I took a really cool class in grad school, my master's program. It was called Dietary Supplements, but the premise of the class was that's the very last resort we want to get to, right? So we started like the first week of class, we tracked everything that we ate. And then there's this app, and I'm blanking on what it's called, but basically it gives you all of your macro and micronutrients. So vitamins and minerals that you need, and it'll tell you based on what you're eating that week, here's the vitamins and minerals that you missed in your food. So instead of going and taking a supplement, what foods have these vitamins, what foods have these minerals, so that I can incorporate those foods into my diet. And then if I have an intolerance to maybe those foods, if I just don't like those foods, if they don't sit well with me, then that's when I reach for the supplement of that vitamin or that mineral that I'm needing. And then completely unrelated, like sport supplements, like those are very last resort, like people who need pre-workout, people who feel they need caffeine, and that's not your typical cup of like daily coffee. But the people who live on coffee and chug it all day long, and who feel like they need to work out and all of that, well, that's usually because you're missing something in your diet, and you're not getting the energy from the food that you're eating.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. Again, like the the quick fix. And I know, Chris, you introduced collagen into your diet.
I did, yeah.
It had a tremendous impact on your joints right away.
Oh, yeah.
And again, that's a great example of like, that's because Chris doesn't eat a lot of like chicken bone, like broths and isn't he eating a lot of that collagen, can't get all that in all day long. And that's where you can supplement. And that's a great example of like, especially with coffee, people are using that to get through because of most likely some sort of either not enough sleep or not enough, or to your point, Whitney, the quality of food they've been ingesting isn't giving them the nutrient kick to get through the day. I was actually just having a conversation with a buddy about the carnivore diet, and he had a lot of success on it right away. But a lot of it too is because he was just not ingesting a lot of the junk. It wasn't really the carnivore
less
diet.
crap. Yeah,
less crap in is better crap out, right? So like that's where he felt a lot better about how things were progressing. So no, I think that. That's definitely the fuel thing definitely matters. And I love that point of like, it's not like if you're feeling tired in the morning, it has nothing to do with what you're going to do that morning. But what are you going to do today in the next couple of days so that 3 days from now, you don't wake up feeling the same way?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Funny story on the carnivore diet. I'm blanking on the name of the guy who like made it popular or famous, and
Joe Rogan
wrote a whole book about it. No,
Liver King.
But there's a guy who like he's a doctor and like PhD doctor, went and wrote a whole book on it, and he's now come back like 3-4 years later after doing that for 3 to 4 years, saying like, you shouldn't do this. This should not be long term. This shouldn't be something like, this is not for longevity. This isn't something that lasts. So I think that's funny that obviously, yes, Rogan is the main person who popularized it, but like he talks about the book that he learned about it from. And I think he even had this guy on his podcast, and that guy has now come back like, don't do this. I'm having like health issues from doing this for so long. I'm like, I think that's funny. But to your point, sometimes that's not to say to try it, right? Like it has been seen to help with some like inflammatory diseases and stuff like that, but it's still a temporary fix for that. It is by no means a long-term fix.
All of these diets, I think, have become a very good reset on things like even like keto, for instance. I would never do it. I just love carbs too much. I also understand them to be fuel, and it's dumb in my opinion. But it's a great reset for some people. That's why it goes back to your point earlier. It depends, and this is why, like, if you're curious about these things, like try to find a professional near you. Reach out. We can always put you in touch with Whitney, and if we have people that we can talk to, we can put you in touch with here. Caitlin from the podcast as well. To answer some of these questions, because it does sometimes depends, and sometimes they're really great diets to reset. The one though I want to get your thoughts on, Whitney, because again I counted macros for 5 years of my life. I weighed every single thing that went into my mouth. Like I was that psychopath that carried food to restaurants. So
I've been there.
And it was a great part of my life, and it does work well. But one of the things that I think is so true no matter what is just understanding how macros work. And your macronutrients are going to be different for Chris than they're going to be for Andy, and they're going to be for Whitney. Even if we're all doing the exact same workout plan, our bodies are going to require different fuel intake. So I just didn't know. I want to get your thoughts on like, is that part of like, I don't know if that's something you want to speak on about fuel. I know we're getting into nutrition, and you just said that those are not a part of the series of letters that you have. I think macros are the one though that like. And zone diet is like the closest one that is kind of like that the whole 40-30-30 like basic setup on your macros is a really good number, like things to start out with. But I think like, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that part of the fuel, just understanding that most people just have an unrealistic understanding of how much of their proteins, carbs, and fats they're eating. And most of the time, I promise you, you're not eating enough protein and you're eating way more fats than you think you are. And that's one of the reasons why like, carry MyFitnessPal around for 30 days. Go on the free trial, but count all your stuff you're doing. Because I promise you think you're eating better than you really are. And I think sometimes people just don't understand, that's really where it's coming back to. You can eat real fruit. If you're eating real food, that's the great starting point. And then it's about looking at the quantity of each of those macronutrients. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and even for me, like, so I've done the whole count your macros thing too and track every single thing. And it's so funny, like still this was years ago, and still to this day at Thanksgiving and Christmas, my family's like, oh, we have to make something for Whitney so she'll eat. And I'm like, no, I ruined my family. Yeah. Like, I swear I eat anything now. It's not a problem. But yeah, I think as far as being meticulous enough to track your macros for 5 years, I think that's dependent on like what your goals are. So I competed in powerlifting, and so I needed that I had to either lose weight or gain weight to stay in a certain weight class. I would recommend for someone who's never counted their macros before, I do think it is important to kind of, like you said, do it for 30 days just to have an idea of where you're at. Because what I will say, and this is more common in women than it is in men, but it definitely does happen in men too, is like we can become mentally so dependent on that if we eat 1 calorie above what we needed or whatever, then we're like, oh my God, I went off the wall and I have to starve myself the next day. So that's a very negative consequence that comes from tracking so meticulously. But I do think it's important to know there are different websites that you can go to, and the accuracy of them, some of them to be determined, some are good, some are bad, but at least like to get a number so that you can work off of that. I think is really good. You know, if you look at every food label, it says based on a 2,000 calorie diet. Well, most people either need way more than 2,000 calories or they need way less. So it's like, oh, okay, this is one serving based on a 2,000 calorie diet. Well, maybe for me, like when I competed in powerlifting, I was blown away by how much I needed to eat. Like eating became a full-time job because I needed to eat. I needed to consume that. Yeah, for sure.
But you got to do the work, Chris. That's the
Yeah, I needed to consume more calories than I ever had to keep up with the amount of weight that I would have been burning, but I still needed to maintain a certain weight class.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, there's a whole science here. Like it's dependent on, how many calories are you burning? Like I said, when we're at rest, we have like our resting metabolic rate. So everyone, we're just sitting here talking. We're surprised we're sitting here burning calories as we're sitting here talking. Yeah. That's just your body doing its normal functions. And what that number is for me is different than that number is for Chris, and it's different than that number is for Andy, because we're all different shapes and sizes. And so like you take into consideration what you're burning at rest, what you're burning when you work out, and then what do you need to feel energized, to feel like you're not tired all the time, to feel like you're not sluggish all the time, to feel like you can power through your workouts. And so I think macros are important to have an idea, and I think anyone should, if you're completely unfamiliar with that, should get an idea of like what your caloric number is. And I think say maybe you even meet with a dietitian, or maybe you find a website that kind of gives you a number. Say that number is 2,500 calories. Like I recommend first just try to eat 2,500 calories. Like don't track protein, carbs, fats. Like see what eating feels like. And even if you're just basing off of a label, like labels are not always accurate. But unfortunately, like that's what we as a society have to work off of. And so like track your labels, or go and look on Google, what is like 5 ounces of chicken? How many calories is that? And see what 2,500 calories feels like. Then from there, then we can break it down. Are you doing a lot of strength training? Are you doing a lot of training period? We're going to need to increase your protein goals. Now let's hit 200 grams of protein and also 2,500 calories. So we're not tracking carbs and fats at all. I just want you to hit your protein goal and your calorie goal. And I think that's what I would recommend for most people, is your protein goal and your calorie goal. And then if you want to, like, if you're really into performance and like timing of nutrition, what time of day should I eat my carbs? What time of day should I eat my fats? Based around your training, like, yes, we can take a deeper dive into that. But that's going to be when performance and like performing in a sport, performing in your training is going to be more important. But if it's just like, for me, the point I'm in my life, kind of Andy, like you're talking about earlier, I'm training for life. I want to be strong. I want to be fit. I want to be able to do anything that anyone invites me to do. I don't want to feel left out. So I'm not really like, I don't have a physique goal. I don't care to look a certain way. I don't have really any strength goals. I just like feeling strong in everything that I do. So like timing of carbs and fat isn't nearly as important. But I have an athlete or a wrestler who has a meet on Saturday, and like we need to get his performance to be as optimal as it can be for that Saturday. Then timing of carbs and fat and all that's going to be important, and we're going to play around with that. But I'd say for the general population, having an idea of how many calories you need so that you're getting enough. Because if you're under eating, unfortunately, you can gain weight too, which kind of sucks. If you're not eating enough, your body's going to really
body will freak out and hold on to everything. And that's
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're under eating, initially you'll lose weight. But then it's going to get to this point where like, oh, I need to hold on to this because I'm realizing I'm not getting along for a long period of time.
Caitlin may have
so
mentioned
knowing
this
how-
in our last session, Chris. But one of the things that like this was the other one that like I think is the like going back to the breaking of the chain and then like keeping the chain going. But like if you have a day where you like screw it up, like you've gone crazy and you ate the entire bag of cookies, like tomorrow is
It
not.
happens.
Yeah, tomorrow is not. Don't eat. Tomorrow is go back to 2,500 calories. Hit your protein goal. Like that becomes like. It's not because that's what people tend to do is they'll go the other direction like, oh, I did this, so I'll eat 2,100 calories for the next 4 days, and your body is like eventually might be like, oh, okay, but by day 2 of that, it's like it starts to freak out like, oh, I have to hold on to all this stuff again, and that's where people say like, say like, oh, I'm just going to eat a little less. You're being intentional about eating less to hit your calorie goal is one thing, but eating less because you're trying to like game the system that's not a long-term strategy.
Gotcha.
No.
Which is crazy that blows people's mind. But yeah, and what's funny is every now and then I'll find the name of the app I was talking about is called Chronometer. And so it's like my fitness app. It'll track your protein, carbs, and fats, but it goes deeper and will also track your micronutrients such as your vitamins and minerals as well. And every once in a blue moon, if I'm feeling tired regularly, I go in and I'll put in Chronometer what I'm eating. And more often than not, I'm not eating enough. Which is like crazy because I feel like I eat a lot.
That's wild.
But, I'm also a creature of habit, and you said I eat the same thing every single day in and day out, and I don't get tired of it, and it works, and it's simple, and it's easy. And then on the weekends, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna cook up something fancy. I have a good recipe for my venison. I'm gonna make something fancy. Nice. But like mostly through the week, I'm gonna eat the same things. And I'll go in and I'll track it. And I'm like, well, I'm nowhere near where I need to be. So that's probably why I'm tired.
Right. So real quick, just to break down macros for us average Joes who don't feel like tracking all this or just don't have the mental capacity to track all this. Hot tips might be just eat real food, number one. And I love what we said earlier, Whitney, just eat when you're hungry and stop when you're not hungry. Portion control is definitely on my list of resolution this year, and that one's not been as successful as the closing of the rings, but 100% just trying to eat less and just like I'm a foodie, man. Like when something's good, like it's hard to stop eating this good thing. Well, so I just need to like draw a line. Like, stop, Chris.
I would challenge you to two things. One, like this is like first off, if we were going somewhere out, if we were out to eat, 3 of us are out to eat, we all got 3 different meals right now. And let's say, I wanted it like, and I was like, oh my gosh, you guys got to try this. And you guys got a bite of my food. If you took a couple bites of my food, you scratch an itch, I think more than people give themselves credit for, especially if they're fully hydrated. So I think one of the things, I think that I think it's a mental thing more than it's real as far as like your portion size, especially if you set your plate intentionally. And Corey actually said this on a previous podcast. So Corey, another Okayest Cook, but all of you don't have to be watching this team if you're listening to this. If you look at your fist, if you basically have macros are, I mean, if we're just looking at your protein, there's my thumbs up on the thing. But protein, like if your protein is the size of your fist, it's probably close to the right portion. It's probably the right portion. Same thing with your carbs, and same thing, so if you have like a vegetable, a fruit, and a meat on your plate, and it's all 3 the same size as your fist, you're probably in the right realm of things. It's a good like little cheat code for portion. But also, I think that's the other side of that is that if you are properly hydrated and you then be intentional about setting your thing up, Corey's little trick for him is he changes his plate size. So like instead of grabbing your dinner plate for dinner, grab your salad plate and put your same dinner on that. And mentally it's going to look like you've got this overflowing plate of food. And it helps out a ton. And it's one of those things where it might take you a day or two to get through that trick. But eventually that's one of those things, just like everything else. It's just a habit that has to be broken. But I think portion control is one of those things where you're literally scooping this thing out with your hand. If it matches your other hand, maybe stop.
Yeah, do you want to mention another study I'll mention.
Yeah.
So it's kind of on the, like, also when you're eating, you're burning calories. We have what's called the thermic effect of food.
Yeah.
And Chris, to your point of like eating when you're hungry and when you're not hungry, like I said, I think we as society have normalized breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But to sit down and eat all of your calories or all of your food in one meal is okay too. So the study looked at the thermic effect of food throughout the day, and someone who ate 3 to 4 meals and then someone who ate one large meal. And at the end of the day, the thermic effect of food was the same. So like if you don't find yourself getting hungry until dinner time, just eat a really big dinner and that's okay. But then
That's
if
good to
you
hear.
find yourself like I just eat all day long. So I know I've got to have smaller portions when I'm doing that. So, Andy, I use the trick that you use too. I have small bowls, I have small plates because I feel like I'm constantly hungry. So I'm going to eat smaller meals throughout the day. But if you're not hungry all day long, like that's normal too. That's just dependent. Like maybe that's habitual for some people. Like it is okay to sit and just have dinner and to eat all of your calories at dinner. And so if that's the only time you're eating, then kind of flip the switch, have a big meal. That's okay because you haven't eaten all day. So it's so lifestyle dependent and like, what does your day look like? What works for you? And I think so many people want to complicate things, which believe me, I am one of those people.
That and then everyone's looking for it's either overcomplicating it or they want the easy button. They want to just be like what's going to work for me. And that way, unfortunately, with health, with fitness and with nutrition, so much of it is dependent on how on you individually. Like I am not one that does well with fasting. I have tried it and I'm a hangry individual. So when I'm hungry, I'm no fun to be around. So I'm more like Whitney, where I eat more consistently throughout the day because it helps keep me in a better state of mind, to be completely honest. But a buddy of mine like swears by, he doesn't ever eat before noon, ever. Like but it's the easiest thing in the world for him. I'm like, well, I would die. I would be a wreck by noon every day. I would be a temperamental big baby by noon if I did that. But I think that's one of those things where experiment with this, like if you've been doing something one way and it's not working, try something else. But, give it its fair share, because one takeaway that we've heard from Whitney today is like this stuff, it's, it's not you do it once and it's immediate effect. Like health takes time. And so you need to do something consistently, like give yourself, do it for 3 weeks. I mean, most plans, they want you to go, like most workout, you're not going to see results for 6 weeks, so it's like you're committing to doing something for 6 weeks. And count how many days are in 6 weeks, guys. It's a commitment just to see a little bit of change. So give it its due. But like if you've tried something and it's not working for you, like try something else, because I love the small plate thing. I think it's a great trick. At the same time, I think fasting's awesome too if it works for you. But so don't, again, if you hear these things, like this is the takeaways, it's like try to pick one of these things to try. But I really like your comment, Whitney, on like just 2,500 calories and count your protein. Like that's such a great place to start.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
I think too, in what kind of like we've alluded to, like what feels good for you, because then we can start, and this is kind of like a deeper dive, but I'll speak to like me personally, like if you have any, I don't want to say like health problems, but like, so I have really low blood sugar and really low blood pressure naturally. So if I try to fast, I'm going to pass out. Like if I try to go a long time without eating, it's not going to work for me. So of course, fasting first comes out and I'm like, I want to try, like I'm someone who, like as a coach, I'm never going to give someone an exercise or a program or something that I've never been through myself. So, like, of course, you get athletes or whoever you're working with that are asking me about fasting and all of this. Like, well, let me try it myself before I feel like I can speak on it. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Like, I literally am seeing spots and I'm going to pass out if I don't put calories in. That's when I start eating like crap, because I'm like, I just need sugar because I need to spike my blood sugar, and it becomes a thing. So I think also being aware of just like your general energy levels and how you're feeling and what feels good. And like I said, for some people, waking up in the morning and eating, they feel sluggish. I hear that a lot. Everyone's like, oh, that just makes me feel gross throughout the day. And by all means, don't eat it if it makes you feel gross throughout the day.
Yeah. As long as you're like not gorging yourself at lunch and then gorging yourself again at dinner, and then thus bypassing that caloric threshold that you've tried to hit. And that's the hard part with fasting. If you're going to fast, like the other part of that too is fasting and trying to hit a smaller food range might be a little difficult at first. But yeah, no, that's it's so interesting how different each person really is, and that's where like it sucks to have that it depends answer sometimes. But what I think is cool about that is that like you can really find what works for you. And I think that once people find that, like, this isn't like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like, if you like Whitney, I love that you're talking about like you won't put someone on something you haven't done yourself, and I think that is a core element to a really good coach. Because every nutritionist and health coach I've ever worked with has always had that mindset. So you can know what to potentially expect from something. But like once you get it figured out, like going back to like people they overcomplicate things, and if you just kind of keep it simple, like keep a couple things. Like I love going back to your resolutions. Like love that you're closing the rings. And it's one of those things where like right now, like that right now is like, that's a great goal for you. And eventually when you do that long enough, you're going to be like, I want to go, the next thing is I want to do, what's my caloric intake look like? And then maybe you'll get the app. Like, but I think where people also go too far is they try to do all these changes at once.
Yes.
And you'll just make yourself miserable. Like, and then you'll quit all of it. So like it is not a, this is not a cold turkey strategy. I like people do like say that that's what they did and it worked. Like good for you. You're the exception, not the rule. Yeah. The rule is more in line with like little bits at a time. But yeah.
Well, I like this chat. Yeah.
On the topic of keeping it simple, I do a presentation that's like training for the everyday hunter. I keep it simple, stupid, and that's the title of it. Like,
we need it.
Keep it simple. You don't have to make it complicated. We always want, and also to your point, like it gets complicated when we try to do it all at once. It's okay. Like give yourself grace. We're not gonna figure it out all at once. We're not gonna lose weight all at once. We're not gonna be healthy all at once. But if you want to start with food, if food is your thing, and you're like, oh, like I really like cooking. I spend a lot of time in the kitchen. Then maybe let's focus on like the nutrition piece first, and let's get your nutrition together. And if your training goes off the wall, that's okay. But once you get that dialed in, to Chris's point, like just closing the rings, like that's one ring that's closed. I got my nutrition dialed in today. I feel good about that. That's a ring that I closed. Now I can do that for a month now. Oh my God, I've done that for 2 months now. I think I've got the hang of this. Let's try to incorporate training into this, and then just slowly build. But yeah, I think so many people just want an immediate answer. They want an answer right away, or they want that fix at all. I actually I went to Sheep Show a couple weeks ago, and I spoke on a panel there, and someone asked me there was an older gentleman, and his wife was just getting into hunting with him, and he was like, my wife has knee pains and she's a little bit older, and like what's one exercise that you would recommend for her as she gets into hunting? And I was like, good question. I appreciate your question. But it depends, like, because what might be good for her might not be good for the next person and might not be good for the other person. And I could maybe give an exercise, and because she has knee pains, like maybe it's not good for her. Maybe she feels pain doing that. So then she feels like, oh, well, I do that one exercise, so I just can't hunt, period. So that's unfair to her, because there's other exercises that I could recommend based on pains and injuries and all of that she's had. And so it's like, yeah, everyone wants this, like, what's this one thing I can do? What's this one fix-all approach? And unfortunately, like for everyone, and what's hard in the research side of things for both nutrition and for training is literally, and I think you guys said this in Caitlin's episode too, every body is different. Every body responds different to different things. Every body responds different to different nutrition regimens, different training regimens. So I can even go out and read a study, and maybe 5 people participated in this study, and it worked for all 5 of those people, but that doesn't mean it's going to work for me. So it's so tough to like have an answer for everything. And so that's why I always say, like, do what feels good, do what you like, and do what you're going to stick to.
Yeah. Well, I think that the one trick, or the one thing that could work for everybody, is just learning to listen to your body. Stop eating when you're not hungry. Eat when you're hungry. Sleep when you're tired. And just like, learn what your body is trying to tell you. And I think that's my big takeaway from today. If you don't feel like counting this, if you don't feel like closing that, just listen to yourself. Your body's going to tell you what's going on. It's going to tell you what it needs. Are you going to know how to fix it? Maybe not.
Yeah,
Are you going to fix it the
yeah.
right way? Maybe not. But
And listen to it though. Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, that's the people like like you're hearing it, but are you listening? Like, so if you're tired, put your phone down. Quit scrolling. Go to bed. Go to sleep.
Yes.
If you don't have to be up at 7 tomorrow morning because you don't have anything till 9, and you can wake up at 8. Like, get yourself that extra hour, and so you can feel what it feels like to have that extra hour, and then you can adjust things accordingly. But I think that's the other big thing. Is like, I love that, Chris. Like, you're right. Listen to what your body's telling you, but listen. Don't just hear it.
Yeah, you have to listen and act, I suppose. Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I really like to do when I'm coaching, and I think it's something that can apply to like everyday life. It doesn't necessarily just have to apply to your training. Is like, I'm big on, if someone's coming in and they're really fatigued and they're really tired, and say we have like max effort squats that day, I don't want them going max effort. So I do this like red light, green light, yellow light. So you're coming in, are you on a green light today? Or are you just feeling like, yeah, coach, like I feel like I can do the workout today? Then heck yeah, we're going to do what's on the menu. Are you on a yellow light today? Then okay, I'm going to adjust a little bit. Like, just because the rest of the group is doing this, I might dial you back just a little bit, because if you're not feeling 100%, if you're not at green light, then let's dial it back just a little bit. And if you're a red light, then like maybe we don't even train today. Right. Maybe we throw you on the bike and you just cycle for 30 minutes, and then you do some stretching and some mobility, and you drink some water and you eat some food. But like, I think that can apply to everyday life, and as far as like just normal folks who maybe aren't interested in training hard and like counting your macros. And all right, what's red light, green light, yellow light look like for them? Well, red light to be, I'm feeling really tired, I feel off, I'm intuitive with myself. I'm kind of gonna just kind of hang out. Green light day is like, yeah, I'm feeling good. Like, I'm gonna go for a walk. I'm gonna get some sun. Maybe I take my dog with me. I'm gonna spend more time outside. I'm gonna eat good foods that feel good, that are fulfilling. And a yellow light is gonna be somewhere in between. I like to apply that to like everyday life too, because I think there's just so much.
I love that.
Take from that.
Well, I love that you just said that, because I don't work out a ton, but I've got this program, the Mountain Tough. I think it's like a 90-day program, 90-day program. And some of those workouts are like brutal. And like, I'm trying to follow along as hard as I can, but like, just some days I just can't do it. And so I love, it's almost a little validation, like say like, it's okay. Like, if you can't do like this thing that this guy that works out for a living, like, created. And it's all right.
And you just hit on the curation. Like, remember the curation. All of us have it. We have Okayest Cook is a gorgeous follow. And if you're not following it, you should. But those are curated meals, man. That's not what every single meal that Chris and I eat look like. And what, Corey's not making that every single night. Like, these are curations. David Goggins has bad days. And Cam Hanes has bad days.
Yes.
Like, all these people have great days and they have bad days, man. It's just, but I think one of the things that we like need to remember is that, like, to your point, like, I love the red light, green light system. Like, that's such a great idea, because it is hard to give yourself grace in those moments, especially if you're at all a competitive person. If you're used to being good at something and, you're getting back into shape, and you were in great shape in high school, and now it's, 20 years later and you're not feeling as great. Well, again, give yourself some grace. When you were in high school, you had bad practices too. You just don't remember,
Yes.
Well, too, like Chris, to your point, and like when it's giving yourself grace, like, it's okay if you're tired. You can still work out if you're tired. Like, if it's a yellow light day, you can still work out if you're tired. But say maybe it's because you're underfed, maybe it's because of stress, maybe it's because of work, or you're sore or whatever. Like, at the end of the day, the energy you expended is going to be the same, even though you dialed it back, right? So, and like, stress, like I said earlier, burns calories, and it can wear you down and can bring you down. And so, like, if I have a day where I'm really stressed, but I need to go in and like do a lot of weight in the weight room, I'm going to dial it back a little bit, and I'm going to be okay with that, because I know I went in, that was kind of a red light day for me. I know that even though I didn't maybe do the assigned percentages that I needed to do, I still expended the same amount of energy at the end of the day, with everything else that was going into it. And like you said, I think a lot of people, unless if you're like competitive, and I'm competitive, I'm more competitive with myself than I am with anybody else, right? Like, I don't want to let myself down. But I think you just have to recognize that, like, I always take the longevity approach. Like, I want to be able to live for a long period of time so I can do lots of really cool things. So if I take care of myself and I dial it back when I know I need to dial it back, I know that's going to give me that extra 1% for the next day, so they can do more and more every day that comes by.
Love it.
Yeah, I think if we have longevity in mind, it really helps us like, like I've got a lot of days, hopefully in my life, that I can go harder. But today, I'm going to slow it.
Yeah, great.
Love it. Well, let's shift back over to food here real quick in the last few minutes we got. Andy, you just reminded me that we did not talk about our notable meals.
Oh, we did it again.
I skipped it. Do we want to hit that real quick? Whitney, do you have a meal that you ate recently? It doesn't have to be this week. Just anything fun that's stood out.
I knew this question was coming after listening to the other one.
Normally we leave with it too. I feel bad.
One thing I've been doing recently is a venison roast.
Nice.
So I got three whitetail this year.
Nice.
And the last one that I took to the processor, I was like, I want as many roasts out of this as I can.
Yeah.
I want to see what I can do with some roasts. And so been big on that, and I feel like I finally kind of nailed it. It's a recipe that I found, but I've kind of adapted it to my likings as well. And
Nice.
First time I did it, it was good, but like didn't have that much flavor. Second time I did it, it was a little too dry for my likings. And I just did it a third time, and it was perfect. So like third time is
do
the
you
charm.
have that recipe handy?
Yeah, what was it?
Yeah, I think I could probably spit it off the top. So it was
Save that for the end. That could be a recipe of the
use your
episode.
recipe as our recipe for today. So,
Okay, yeah, and I can send it to you guys afterwards. But it's a venison roast. So what I figured out the trick was, obviously venison is very low in fat, doesn't have a lot of fat on it. But for a meat to be not too dry, you need a little bit. So when I sear it on the cast iron, I do bacon in the cast iron first.
Yes.
And then this time, I did that the first 2 times, but the third time I also threw a couple slices of bacon into the crock pot with it.
Yes,
And I think that really helped a lot. So I seared it in bacon fat and threw bacon in the crock pot, which I think helped a ton. And then you kind of do like a red wine reduction after you sear it on the cast iron, put it in the crock pot. It's like red wine, beef broth, or bone broth, whichever you choose to use. Garlic, rosemary, thyme, onions, potatoes, carrots, and there's got to be a handful of tomato paste. I feel like there's a couple of things I'm missing, but I can send it to you guys, and I don't know if you post them anywhere, but it's really good. It turned out
That's awesome.
The third time, and I loved it.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, bacon fixes all.
It helps.
So Chris, I've been expanding my palate a bit. And so mine was actually, so I've been to, actually with Caitlin, she has taken me to Indian food one time, and it was good. I tried a bunch of stuff, didn't really take away like what I actually liked. I just enjoyed myself. It was fine. And that was a number of years ago. And this is very classic meal prepper. I meal prepped a ton of food this was last Sunday. Made a bunch of food and was like, I don't want to eat any of this.
No.
And so I wanted to, there's a Thai place that's in the area that my friends that live right down the street love. And so I was like, not Thai, Indian food that I wanted to try. And I feel like, I don't even know what I'm ordering here, but I know that his wife gets the butter chicken. And it's like basically a light red curry, basically. Is all it really is.
Love it.
And again, like I don't know what I'm ordering. And I'm like, I know they get the naan bread, so I got that too.
Oh my gosh.
So like I just like ordered it completely blind, not knowing anything about what I'm doing.
Yes.
Had it delivered. What I loved about it was like it was great delivery from food. So if you aren't feeling great and you want to have something delivered to you, it is great delivery. And it's individually portioned, so you can create your own portions out of it because there's a lot of food. So it ended up being a couple of meals, even for me. But man, oh man, I am a fan of butter chicken. So I don't know how great it is for you. It tasted like
probably not so good.
A lot of fat in it, but man, that was mine for this episode for sure. That was that's one of those that I've thought about that butter chicken more than once since I've had it. So
it's good for your soul, not for your heart.
So much.
Yeah, so good.
Wait, funny story, completely unrelated to the podcast, but related to Indian food. Years ago, I went on a first date to an Indian restaurant, and I didn't know about like Indian spice. Like I had Thai food before, I guess it's similar.
Yeah.
But I'm from Texas. We eat a lot of Mexican food, and I'm like, I like spicy things, right? So
You thought.
Anyway, yeah.
Salt.
I'm at this Indian restaurant, and they're asking your spice level. And I'm like, oh, I like spicy. Like, whatever, let's go for it. And I don't know what level they brought me, but what I do know is I was sweating profusely on this first date. And I was like, thank God it was winter. I could like run outside and cool off.
Oh, no.
That's
hilarious.
That was a funny story.
Awesome.
Yes. Be careful with your experimentations at new restaurants.
Yeah, they're not messing around in
Yes.
Indian and Thai. They're not messing around to talk about spice levels.
Oh man. Well, guys, I ate gnocchi. Did I say that right? I ate gnocchi for the first time. Shockingly, I don't think I've ever had it.
How have you
before
never
now.
had it?
I don't know, but I found this magazine. My boys got sick, preschool, yay, and I was at the pharmacy picking up his medicine, and there's this magazine sitting there, all about one pan dishes you can make, and like the photography caught my eye, so I was like, I need that. So I grabbed it. I found this recipe in that magazine, and it's escaping me at the moment. It called for asparagus and gnocchi. At the grocery store, the asparagus looked like crap, so I skipped that and I got Brussels instead. Okay. So I threw those in. So it was just basically roasted Brussels with the gnocchi and some red onion, garlic, and just like olive oil. So like crazy simple. Yeah. There's probably a couple other things in there I'm forgetting, but it was good, really good.
Nice.
It's the gnocchi was kind of hit and miss, like just the way they had you throw it together. Yeah. Like some of the chunks got a little overcooked, just kind of hard and like a little too crispy in the like just the whatever the potato based pasta. It's like it didn't take that heat, that roasting very well. So some of them were super tender and really good. Others were just kind of a little too hard. But so I need to try it again. I'll tweak it and try it again. But I think that turned out really well.
Nice.
I liked it.
I've also never had gnocchi before.
No, it's different. It's
you
like
uncultured swine. What are you guys doing? Come on.
Where is gnocchi from? Is it like a?
Well, it's Italian, right? It's an
is
Italian.
I don't know.
Yeah, pasta. I had some in Italy. I don't know. So
but it's like a potato based instead of like starchy.
There's still
grain.
flour in it. So like for those of you gluten-free folk, be careful. Some places make it with not old world flour, so you're gonna have a little bit of like gluten in it.
Copy.
But it is typically more gluten. If you're gluten sensitive, is a better pasta choice.
Safer.
But man, oh man, it's some good stuff. I wonder, Chris, on that roasted version, if you almost like did the gnocchi separately in the water and added in, like roasted your roasted stuff and then added that in.
Well, there was no water, which was interesting. It's so they told us to get shelf stable gnocchi, so it wasn't dehydrated. Like you took it out and it was kind of like it was forgiving. Like it was.
Yeah.
You could have eaten it straight from the box for sure, but
probably, yeah. That's also strange. Okay. Well,
we'll try it again. We'll tweak it.
We'll try it again. We'll play.
Yeah.
No.
Yes,
so Whitney, go find an Italian restaurant.
Yes.
And go try
gnocchi.
This. So if you want like very basic version, Olive Garden actually has a pretty good one too.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, they do. Nice. It's more of a soup style, but it's good.
I know Trader Joe's has a gnocchi that people rave about.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I love it.
Grab some.
DJ's
report back.
Grab some of the dark chocolate peanut butter cups while you're there too. So good.
Let's go. Yes.
Their snacks are my favorite.
Yes.
So good at snacks. DJ's.
All right. Well, hey, we just talked about all the healthy stuff. We can't talk about.
Can't talk about snacks.
We can't talk about buttercups right now. And any final thoughts we have before we send everyone off? I would love to get back with you, Whitney, on eating better snacks. I don't think we had hit record at this point in time, but you did mention like backpacking and like taking better snacks out into the field with you. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's another episode in the future. We can talk about that. But
sure.
Skip the Little Debbies and ask Whitney for some recommendations. Yes.
Yeah, feel free to, whether it's through the podcast page or my personal Instagram, is just my first and last name.
Yes.
Feel free to reach out.
On that note, tell us all where to find you.
Yeah.
So you're the Wild Strength podcast.
podcast, it is the Wild Strength Podcast is the Instagram handle, my personal one. Like I said, just first, last name. Then I think there's 2 underscores after it, 1 or 2. And yeah, reach out, ask me questions. I love answering questions. I'm one of those people where like I'm not popular, so I can answer them. And I always, it's so funny. Like having a podcast has been wild to me because I hate social media and I hate the like. It's weird to me that there can be people who know about you that you've never met or talked to before. It's a wild concept to me. But it's like if I want my podcast to grow, I have to engage in social media and like I don't. But it's cool though. I've met amazing people through Instagram,
That's
through
cool.
social media, and there's bad folks in every basket or bad eggs in every basket. So I've come across some weird ones too. But like God, I'm like just so many cool people. So I both love and hate social media. But anyways, all that to say, reach out to me. I'm gonna answer.
Yes,
I love answering questions, and yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and definitely looking forward to future conversations. And dude, I'm super excited to see where the network is growing. Like Eric's bringing such a cool group of people here into the circle. So the Okayest network is becoming quite the thing. And yeah, a lot of cool things on the way. Super pumped.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
No problem.
Thanks for coming. Yeah.
Until next time, guys. Talk soon.